Let's face it, fixed gear just isn't as popular as it used to be, but would it be a stretch to say that fixed gear riding is dying? What's up, I'm Zach Allard. Life is short, but don't make it shorter, so ride your bike every day to be reasonably dangerous. Be sure to subscribe for more fixed gear videos just like this one. And if you still proudly ride a fixed gear bike in 2018, be sure to represent that fact with a reasonably dangerous summer v-neck. This is a limited edition shirt, as will all my shirts be, and it'll only be available for 1 month. After that, they'll be gone forever, so get yours while you can at the link in the description. When we ask the question, is fixed gear riding dying, what we mean is that long gone are the days when you and pretty much all of your friends were into fixed gear bikes, and that there was a lot of people that were trying to get into it. I've talked to a lot of bike shop owners, people in the bike biz, and seasoned riders, and pretty much everybody agrees that fixed gear riding just isn't what it used to be, and the culture isn't there anymore. Back in the heyday of fixed gears in 2011 to 2012, the scene looked a lot different than it does today. Of course, there was Mesh SF and Macroframin that popularized the whole fixed gear craze with their insane hill bombs and weaving through traffic on brakeless track bikes and casually doing BMX tricks on $800 wheels. People have never seen this type of cycling before or these types of bikes before. It was fresh and exciting compared to the deeply traditional road cycling crowd that attracted more affluent, hyper-competitive types. It was different with this dangerous and a bit reckless city riding where the only rules were to ride hard and not die on these really beautiful yet hodgepodge DIY bikes. Fixed gears made cycling cool on a bunch of different levels. Not everybody knew about them, and if you ran into another fixed gear rider on the street, you two would immediately have a connection, like if I ran into another Filipino person in Kentucky. It was a ton of fun to scrounge around Pedal Room, eBay, Craigslist, or whatever fixed gear forums were popular at the time for parts to complete your next build. If you wanted track components, you pretty much had to go used because retailers weren't carrying them. It was still a pretty niche market. But luckily, everybody was constantly building, and you could usually find what you wanted almost immediately on the used market. People would sell a bike that they built the previous week and have a new build ready for the next group ride. And on those group rides, everybody would just nerd out over each other's upgrades and builds. Like, yo, dude, I had to go all the way to SF for this Panasonic, but I got it from this old Japanese dude, and it turns out he's a retired Keirin racer, and I snagged it for like 200 bucks. Everybody took pride in their builds, and it was a ton of fun to share sketchy Craigslist stories or eBay snags, or how you got frustrated working on your bike in the hot summer, and then you ended up stripping your Thompson stem, totally not speaking from experience. There were big group rides regularly, and if there wasn't one, you could easily organize your own by jumping on the forums or asking your friends and friends of friends if they wanted to ride. It seemed like everybody was just down to ride. This wasn't just a US thing either. My friends at Nabis and Faith Gear in Taiwan told me that at the peak of the fixed gear craze in 2011, 2012, 100 people would come out to their weekly night rides. 100 people every week. Fast forward to the present day a few years, and now they say they get about 10 people on their weekly night rides, which still sounds pretty good to me, but it ain't the same for them. Fixed gears were cool because the bikes are so simple and minimal and beautiful. They intrigued people that have never thought of becoming a cyclist, let alone building their own bike. Back in the day when I was locking up my bike, passersby would comment on how sweet of a ride I have. They'd also ask where I got my bike, what type of bike it is, and some of them even asked me if I could build bikes for them. Back in the heyday, people were just so much more receptive to being introduced to fixed gear. It was new, people didn't know, and it was cool. It's been a handful of years since the heyday of fixed gears, but since then, Leader Bikes has kicked the bucket, EAI has stopped producing the cult classic frame sets, the Godzilla and the Bare Knuckle. The iconic Chinelli Mash collaboration ended. Velocity killed off the B43, so now it only bar spins in our hearts and memories. And the market for used parts sucks, to say the least. Seriously, hardly any used parts ever crop up on eBay or Craigslist anymore, and if they do, you're kids are probably going to graduate from college before you find a good deal. Now, if you want to build, you mostly have to cough up the dough and get new components. And if you want to move on to a new build and sell yours, it's pretty hard to flip your bike. People just aren't building the way they used to. It's not all bad though. There's been some growth in the fixed gear market. New track components are now more accessible than ever. You can order them from anywhere in the world as long as you're willing to pay the price. To put things in perspective, back in 2012 to get my Omniums, I had to give my friend $150 cash because he met a guy who knew a guy who had Omniums and they could meet behind a Safeway in the dead of night for the transaction to happen. Now you can literally fub around your phone in your underwear and have Omniums overnighted to you in your choice of color and in your choice of crank arm length for free with Amazon Prime. Also, some successful fixed gear companies have cropped up since the heyday, and some of them offer bikes that would easily cost twice as much as they're asking for back in 2012. Overall, the competition has gotten a lot fiercer for new fixed gears, and we consumers can buy complete bikes more easily with less money. But again, the culture of scrounging, building, and being hooligans on the street just isn't there anymore. Some say that fixed gears were just a fad and that the fad died. But fixed gears weren't just a fad. Hoverboards, fidget spinners, and Pokemon Go were fads. And thank God they were. Fads become super popular out of nowhere and die soon after that. Everybody wants a hoverboard for Christmas, and then January rolls around and they realize that they could have gotten 98 burritos and used their legs instead of getting a wheelchair made for able-bodied people. Fixed gears, on the other hand, were more of a trend in cycling. There was a good spike in popularity in 2011 and 2012, but it didn't have that precipitous drop after a month or two like most fads have. Fixed gears, or fixies as the common folk like to call them, were still a lot more popular after their heyday compared to before. People were introduced to fixed gears in 2012, but a lot of them still maintained that interest throughout the years, myself included. It would be a stretch to say that fixed gears are dying or that they even died at all. A big trend right now in cycling are gravel bikes, adventure bikes, or all-road bikes. We still haven't decided on what to call them. Everywhere you go on the internet, a new company is introducing a new gravel bike and people are going out on crazy adventure rides, whatever that means. It mostly looks like they just drink coffee in the woods. But if we look at the bigger picture, fixed gear is still more popular than one of the biggest trends in cycling right now. Fixed gear didn't die, but I would say it grew up. In 2012, most people that got into fixed gears were in the 16 to 24 demographic. 6 years later, those people are now 22 to 30. A lot of these people just naturally strayed away from the punk, scrappy roots of fixed gear. The older people in this group aren't trying to stick it to the man by riding brakeless and running red lights. A lot of them are the man. A lot of these companies also grew up with their customers. They added road bikes, mountain bikes, adventure/gravel, and cyclocross bikes to their lineups in order to accommodate more mature interests. You know, interests with gears and brakes. I know there's a lot of you in the comments that are probably typing, "Who cares whether fixed gear is popular? Just ride whatever you want to ride and stop caring about what other people think." And I myself am guilty of saying these things. It's easy to sit on your high horse and say, be your own person, do what you want to do, don't let the man get you down. But this sentiment goes directly in the face of what most people do and what most people actually care about. I care about whether fixed gear is popular because the more people that are into it, the more fun it is. It means I can go on bigger group rides more consistently and do something that I like with people that I like instead of just puttering around town alone. It means I can share something that I love with more people and hopefully make their lives better as a result. Popularity is important because a critical mass of people needs to be reached before stuff happens. Crits and alley cats don't happen by just doing what you want to do. Neither do group rides, group tours, swap meets, or those inspirational edits. People have to genuinely care for these bigger and better things to happen, and the easiest way to measure that is popularity. I'm hopeful for the future of fixed gear and cycling as a whole. There's periods of growth and there's periods of decay, and in the fixed gear scene, we're just experiencing a period of decay, which just means that the people still riding are more dedicated. I hosted a group ride in Sacramento a couple weeks ago, and let me tell you, about 20 people showed up, and which is insane. For those of you who don't know, Sacramento is the epitome of suburbia. If you're a young person here, there's not much to do other than to go to City College, work at Target, and invite your friends over to your parents' house after work, where you probably live. Not a judgment call, just a fact. So you can sit around and drink and complain that there's nothing to do in Sacramento. And by the way, this group ride wasn't even in Sacramento. It was in a suburb of Sacramento, which is like super suburban. There's like Jamba Juices on every block. And still, like 20 people came out to this ride. Nothing ever happens in Sacramento or Elk Grove, an even smaller suburb. 20 fixed gear riders, give or take a couple of roadies, came out to ride and have fun in 100-degree heat. This is the reason why I even got into fixed gears in the first place, so I could get people connected with each other and just share my love for fixed gears with everybody, and so we could just have a ton of fun. And because of that, I'm hopeful for the future. And for cycling as a whole, the infrastructure in the US is getting a lot better. Better infrastructure leads to more people wanting to get on bikes. More people getting on bikes leads to better bike products and services, which leads to more people getting out on their bikes, coming together, and going out on rides and nerding out over bikes. To put the growth of cycling in the US in perspective, I think the first bike share system was in New York City in 2013 with the introduction of City Bike. Now, these are all the bike share systems in the US. Even Iowa, an entire state that has a smaller population than the city of LA, has a bike share system. And if that's not mainstream, then I don't know what is. And I think that it's good if cycling becomes more mainstream, because more people on bikes is a good thing. Let me know in the comments some of your stories of the fixed gear scene back in the heyday, and also let me know where you want to see the fixed gear scene go in the future. And if you want to represent the fact that fixed gears are still a ton of fun to ride and that they're still awesome, you can pick up this reasonably dangerous summer t-shirt at the link in the description. Remember that they're a limited time only and they're only available for 1 month, so get yours while you can. And Fixie famous shoutouts to Mikey Sincox, Albert Wu, Marek Dravecky, Robert Terpstra, Blue Tick Hounderella01, Evil Ernie, Mark Vandeventer, and Jeziel for making these fixed gear videos possible through their support on Patreon. And don't watch this upcoming video if you haven't ridden your bike yet. Instead, ride your bike every day to be reasonably dangerous.